Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Talent Talks podcast, where we discuss the mental, emotional, and spiritual journey of entrepreneurship. Today, we got a very, very special guest for you. Her name is Erica Effah, and she is the founder of the Erica Effah Agency, and which is all about providing your clients with a really, really robust content marketing strategy, application, and execution of it. Very excited to talk with her today. Erica, how are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. Me and Erica, I've always had a few chats. We're always talking about different strategies, different ways to employ social media and all these different things. So it's going to be very interesting for me to sit down and actually be able to pick your brain regarding this.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
How's your day going so far? How's your Sunday?
Honestly, I'm happy. I'm originally from Calgary, so usually it gets to like minus 45 here. It's a little nippy, but I'll take it. It's mild. It's like low-key a spring for me. So
But Calgary, does it get cold over there?
it gets very cold. Like they just came out of a polar vortex maybe like a month ago, and it sounds really intense saying polar vortex.
Yeah, it does.
It could be worse.
And so when you were growing up in Calgary, that was one of the things you didn't really look forward to? Or where did you grow up?
Yes, so I'm born and raised in Calgary, so I'm a little Cowtown girl, Alberta babe, if you want to say. But honestly, it was good. Because I was born and raised there, my parents came from West Africa, Ghana. And so they gave my life and my brother's a life where we didn't have to have much of a struggle as what they had. So I'm very grateful, and I always give my gratitude to the fact that, I kind of started not at zero, but at one. Mm-hmm. So childhood, cool. Like being an adolescent, cool. Adulthood, cool. And like I'd say I have had my experiences, and I'm sure as we talk more, we'll see how that divulges.
Yeah, so let's dive a little bit deeper into that because myself, I'm also the son of an immigrant parent. So I kind of understand that kind of mentality. So I'd like to know a little bit more about your upbringing and kind of how that affected your outlook on entrepreneurship, on life.
Absolutely. I'd say my parents they've always allowed us to think that there's nothing you can't do. You just got to put the effort in. A saying my dad would say back in the day is, if success was easy, everybody would do it. Mm-hmm. And everybody would have it. And therefore, in my head, I've always had the thought process of, this may be challenging, but like there's a way. Somebody's already achieved it for the most part. Like not a lot of things are unique. Mm-hmm. Not saying that there isn't, but like chances are somebody's done it. So therefore, I just need to figure out the equation. So I've always had kind of that support and the encouragement to, it doesn't matter what you do, you can do it. As well as kind of a little bit of a tough upbringing in the sense of like, say I got 85% on a math test, my parents would be like, where's the remainder? Or even if you got 90%, it was like, where's the 1%,
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's a tough struggle between the two where it's like, okay, like I did well, but like now I'm stuck in this kind of perfectionist mindset where it's like I always have to be 100, so it's about balancing that. But ultimately I'd say like it's kind of helped me in terms of my entrepreneurial journey because like I'm always striving for more. I'm always looking for a challenge. But then there's also like the balancing side of like, don't overwork yourself because you're looking to do the mundane thing to hit 100%.
So generally from when I spoke to a few people who are immigrants as well, and for me specifically, I find that our parents are much more directed towards like security and safety. So, but you mentioned that they were always supportive on whatever you wanted to do. Did they ever like kind of try to guide you in a specific direction, or was it much more free reign? You're open to decide?
Absolutely not. So like when I say that they're supportive, like it's like they come from the background where it's like, yeah, ideally you go to school, you go get the corporate job, X, Y, and Z. However, it's like if you want to do something, have a plan. Like it comes down to having a plan and being specific about it. If it doesn't sound logical to them, then it's like, all right, no, like don't do it. And that's kind of where the pushback was. But for the most part, I still attribute it to them being supportive. And why I say that is because I know they come from a mindset of survival because they had to come here because, systemic racism is a thing. Like I understand why they try to guide me in those places because back then that's what mattered and meant that you're going to be successful is, going to work or going to school, going to work, getting that corporate job. Now we live in a society where you don't necessarily have to follow that route. Like there's just endless opportunities, but obviously they're still in that mindset to a degree.
so it does come from an intention of purity, of love and protection. It's just that the way that they would have seen it as they're growing up.
Absolutely.
So when did you start showing signs of, say, entrepreneurial endeavors, and when did you really think that, okay, this is something that I want to go into? Like,
Yeah, honestly, if I look back about it, like I've always had this like competitive and like ambitious nature. Sounds cliche, but like I had a lemonade stand and I will never forget my brother used to work. I have four older brothers for context. So like one of them, he's way older than me. He used to work, I think, at like a magazine plant. And so one day, me and my friend were gonna do a lemonade stand. And so obviously we had our lemons, we had our water, sugar, whatever. But my brother brought home, what were they, like the peanut M&Ms. This was when they first introduced them.
yeah.
And he had a bunch of stock, and I was like, hey, can I have some of these? And he's like, sure, take as much as you like. So then what did I do? I decided to take the peanut M&Ms and offer that as another product offering.
Oh,
So
that's great.
that was like the start of like, hey, let me add this to my suite of lemonade.
And how old were you at this point?
I probably would have been like 7 or 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
Like I was really young. So I've had plenty of lemonade stands, and I think it started from there. And then back in Calgary, I'm not sure about in Ontario schools, but we had this thing called junior achievement, where essentially at grade 6, you would start like a business. They'd put you into groups, and then you would have a market. And so
What school is this? I've never heard of this before, ever.
so that's why I'm like, I think it might be an Alberta thing, potentially.
Junior achievement. Okay.
Yeah, junior achievement. I've heard of it like lots of times in Alberta, or specifically Calgary, but like here I haven't heard anybody talk about it. But yeah, they come into schools and essentially, yeah, they teach kids how to have their own first business. So ours at 12 years old, it was me, my best friend, and then these two other people. And essentially I can't remember what the name of our business was, but we had four.
Erica Effah lemonade.
It wasn't lemonade. We stepped it up this time. We were selling scented pine cone ornaments. We were selling wine charms. I know, 12 years old, we're like wine charms, and like Christmas festive magnets or whatever. And so, funny enough, the wine charms is what sold really well, which makes sense now that I think about it.
And this is all through a stand? Like, what are your distribution channels here?
Literally, it was like a Christmas market at school. So they would like invite everybody to come, and then it was like all the grade 6s. And we'd line up and like have our little whatever. But we had to have a strategy. We had to have a plan. So we had our little journals that we had to do, and we had to make all of the plans. And then, funny enough, we came up with a marketing strategy. So the marketing strategy at the time, and I think back to this now, that school was very like, it was new and it was privileged because we had the very first Macs. Like we got the white ones that were like plastic or whatever, and we had GarageBand, and we're like, you know what, screw it.
I'm filming on GarageBand right now.
That's so funny. Throwback Thursday, like. Yeah. So yeah, we set up and we made a jingle. And we're like, let's put it on the PA system. So we made a jingle. We put it on the PA system, and it drove people to come to our booth. And so we sold out our wine charms. We sold them for like $2, and we handmade them out of like wire and beads. And I'm like, I think about it now, and I'm like, that is actually a very smart thing, because now as an adult, I'm like, think about it. You go to a party, and like sometimes you can't differentiate like people's wine glasses.
Yeah.
So you put a little charm on it, and then you're able to like differentiate. It's sold out, and
that's literally like, that's so interesting you say that, because you were like finding out the foundations of business very, very early on, because it's not different.
No, it's not.
It's not different. You need to advertise. Where are the eyeballs? For you, like the eyeballs, or I guess the ears are the PA system.
Yeah.
Let me put that out there. Yeah.
Yeah. So like it started like that. And so that was grade 6. And then they did it again in grade 9. So it was like, what, 3 years later or 4 years later that it was. And again, with that competitive nature, it was me and my 3 friends. And this time, our business was called Out the Box. It was really based off of like this YouTube video of a song of these 3 little black girls singing a song. It was really corny. If you search it on YouTube, you can find it. But
what is it? What's it called?
It was called Out the Box, and I can't remember what the 3 little black girls were.
Jahad, put that up on the screen while we're doing this.
Yeah, if I can find it, I'll send it to you. But like, yeah, they were singing the song where like we need to call ourselves Out the Box, and then we made our product offerings. So this time we went the route of like jewelry, and I think the thing is like I was really big into like different trends. I used to watch so much YouTube, like a ridiculous amount. I don't even know how to explain. But I came across this person wearing like bottle tab bracelets. I don't know if you ever remember that type of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, so I got really into making those, and people were like, "Oh, we really like that," or whatever. And I was like, "Cool, like maybe for our junior achievement project, maybe we do that." So like my brothers would throw parties, and then I would take the bottle tabs off of all the cans, and then that was like our stock. And then we bought out like the elastic, and like you'd get like the monster cans with the like colored ones, and we'd sell it off like, oh, it's vintage or whatever. And then we'd go to stores and try to flip their products. So we knew that people were really into Bath and Body Works at the time. So it would be like we'd go in with our coupons, basically buy it at a discounted rate, and then kind of influx. And
Oh,
then,
wow.
yeah. So that one was a competition. That one, there was money for it. So me and my little cocky self at the time, I've since calmed down. But I was like really big on being like, you know what, guys, we're going to come through and we're going to win. And like in this point in time, they would make us basically bid for our spaces within the gym. So this time it came to also negotiating and bidding to like, you know, setting up a storefront. So I will never forget when...
So you have to give them a portion of your profits based on like what, like
No,
where people are?
Yeah, not a portion of your profits. We literally had to put money into this. Same in grade 6, we had to put our own money into this. So this wasn't even just like thought. Like it was actual money being put in. It wasn't like crazy amounts, but like it was one of those things you take a sheet home to your parents and you're like, can I have some money so I can fund my business and then make more money and stuff? So
did your parents mean to put you into this program, or was this just like off by chance? This is what everyone in Alberta was doing.
No, this is all the grade 9s. Like everybody who's in that school, like your grade 9, you're participating. It was part of your marks.
So it wasn't a private school?
No,
is it a private
public
school? It's a public school, but they have these like This is interesting.
I can only speak for like at least the elementary and the middle school that I went to for sure. Like it was just part of it. Like it's just a big like push, but 100% went into that. And like,
but your parents never pressured you to go into business. They're like, hey, this is something you should do. So this is an interest that you developed independently.
Absolutely. And funny enough, I never thought I was going into business. Since I was like, I don't know, when I was young, I look back now, I'm like, why? But I was watching a lot of Judge Judy. And so I told my mom, I was like, I'm going to become a judge. Not even a lawyer. I'm going to become a judge. And so everybody who knew me up until like grade 12 knew me as Erica, who's going to be a judge and go to law school. And so despite all of everything happening, like along the way, I got to like, the end of high school and it was like, am I going to apply to go to law school? Like, and I realized like after I went to a field trip to, I can't remember what it was, if our courthouse or whatever we went, I realized when I was talking to the judge, he's like, yeah, it took me like a good 30 years to become a judge. I had to be a lawyer first. And I was like, I don't want to be a lawyer. Like, I actually just want to be a judge. And I'm like, that really says a lot about who I am.
I just want to judge. I don't want to go. Yeah, I don't want to.
Not necessarily.
I know what you mean. I know what you're saying.
Not necessarily be the judge.
I'm just joking. Yeah.
But I want to be the boss, essentially.
I feel you.
Yeah. So
it's like 30 years to be the boss, or now.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was like at that point where I was like, you know what? Let me apply. Let me apply to different things. And so I did still apply to that law school, or not law school, but the undergraduate program that was like law and society at like UFC and stuff, and like business and like anthropology and all that stuff. But I didn't get into that one. I didn't get into the law and society. I got into MRU and anthropology or whatever. My math mark was garbage, if we're being very honest. But like honestly, it happened for a reason, and I think that's the best thing that could have happened to me because it directed me into where I am today. So like I went there, I did like a year of anthropology, switched into business, and like that's kind of where I started finding out what my real interests were. And again, I didn't realize that like I was going to start a business per se in marketing, but I knew that one day I would start a business. I just didn't know what. So at that time, like I used to be really into sewing and designing. So I used to create dresses, clothes, all that kind of stuff. And I got to a point where I was like, I want to showcase this somehow. And like, this is the early days of like Instagram. So I was like, oh, like maybe I could just, post up myself, do a blog and stuff. So I did that and I started gaining traction. I'm not saying like I'm a big anything of that sort. And I don't really like to call myself an influencer because no offense to anybody. But like, yeah, so I was doing all of that. And in the midst of all of that happening, this is like my early 20s by now. Like my father passed away. And like when he passed away, maybe about a month later, I had a dream where he told me about a business investment. And so with that happening, like, and me being so into sewing and designing, I really thought, okay, maybe he's telling me I need to start a clothing company. So like I did. So I quickly acquired two business partners and like got a bunch of inventory, which is funny. Ironically, I got all the inventory from Toronto. So I feel like everything's so connected because now I'm here. But set up a website. I threw a bunch of ad dollars at Instagram and made no money.
Yep.
I made no money and I was like, damn, like this is not what's supposed to happen. And I'm like, I'm very spiritual in the sense of like, I know he's telling me something and like, I don't know why it didn't work out. So fortunately, I didn't lose the two business partners were also my friends. And so fortunately, they're still my friends. I put that to the side and then I just kind of continued with like, going through the trials of figuring out who you are as an adult with your job and stuff. And I got a job in like operations and whatnot. So like I was working for a company for like 3 or 4 years going through that. And I realized I'm like, yeah, I want to go into project management through this because like it's a big global logistics company. And essentially, if I could move my way up, I was like perfect. And I realized when the pandemic hit that I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. I was like, I know I want to go into marketing after I've been still doing this whole like style blogging on the side. I was like, how can I get into it though? Because all of my experience is in like operations and supply chain. Like, who's gonna take a chance on me? So like when the pandemic hit, I said, screw it, we're just gonna apply everywhere. So then like I applied, ended up landing a job in tech marketing, and then moved across the country to Toronto. Worked at that tech company for a year, got laid off. Laid off, and then boom, that's kind of where this agency was born. But like ironically, in the midst of all of that happening, it was like I knew that I wanted to do it a little bit beforehand because I had dabbled a little bit in digital consulting. And sorry if I'm rambling here.
That's okay.
It's a lot. I knew I wanted to do digital consulting, but of course, like the pandemic was like in part something that paused it on me. So like when I got laid off, I was like, maybe this is the time that I take it on.
Yep.
And I think everything led up to that moment because your experiences are ultimately what are going to help you to shape, that story. And I think that was the time that I was truly ready. When I got laid off, it happened to be around Thanksgiving, and I happened to be in France for my brother's wedding. I will never forget the day that I arrived, and I was super jet lagged, and I was just laying there, and I was like, you know what? I think it's time. It's time I bring back like this digital consulting, but I want to bring it back in the content marketing agency form. And I'll do it while I'm working alongside my business and make it a side hustle and then, grow and then eventually quit my job. So I made a step-by-step plan. I was like, this is how I'm going to bring it back. And then the day I got back is the day I got laid off from my tech job. But I had a step-by-step plan how to start my business.
Let's because I want to dive into your experience here. So you said you went onto the operations side, right? From that operations side, how do you think that influence, or what are the top 3 things that you learned from there? And is it influencing the way that you're running like your current business right now?
Absolutely, 100%. I think everything that I do, I've been able to have some sort of lesson learned and something that I'm able to apply. I think the biggest thing that I learned from operations is like wasted energy. Because like I worked in the day-to-day operations, and when I say that, I'm like, I was in the office and then there's like a warehouse, and then it's like I see how people are doing their processes. One of the big things was like there was like $100,000 missing. Like this is a big thing that I solved an issue with. There's like $100,000 missing a year, and it was like, why? Like in product. And so I just decided one day, let me go out there and see what's happening. I followed somebody and how they're doing the processes. It came down to the fact that the way that they were taking the boxes out, it was like all this extra product was like falling out into like this dead end side. And it was like, if we fix this one process, it'll save us money. And like when that happened, and I was like, oh, we need to correct this step. They had been doing this since 2008.
Oh, wow.
So imagine essentially when I cut that off, and switched up the processes, wrote out a new SOP, saved them millions of dollars since then, So when it comes to doing my marketing agency, it's like, all right, because it's obviously in the beginning stages and everything, how can we work the most efficiently? And also realize like, okay, there's a way you can think of how to do it versus how it's actually being done. and basically comparing the two to minimize, obviously what's the most efficient way to do this without burning and wasting time.
Yeah. And how do you go about, like, what is your framework? How do you go about making a new process? I'm asking because I'm genuinely interested.
Yeah, so I let people do it. I let people do it. I think that
Let
operation,
people do what?
like the role. So like for me, there's multiple different
Okay.
roles within my company, right? So like if you're gonna do graphic design, let them do how they're doing it, observe it, and then go from there. Like I have an idea of how I do it, but not everyone does the same way.
So you observe it, and then how you write it down, you codify it, but then how do you then measure, is it effective, is it not? How do you increase it? Or
Absolutely. I think it also comes down to understanding the individual, their skill, how much, like if you're dealing with somebody who's beginner, it's going to take longer.
yep.
Yeah, versus like, okay, I know for myself, like I've done these things a long time. And so I know what it can get up to, and you have to give yourself grace and give them grace to hit that point and basically show support that, I understand it's going to take time.
Yeah.
But then you also have to have a timeline where it's like, if they're not hitting that KPI, then sorry, bro.
Yeah. So do you have everything? And this is something that I'm struggling with right now, which is why I'm asking. Do you have like, I know that you use ClickUp and you have like a step by step by step. Do you do your own step by steps exactly like how it's done, or do you kind of trust the people and trust the person to do it?
It's a mix.
It's a mix.
It's a mix because I'm still in the beginning stages, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I know what I do, but I also know that like you have to give trust to the other person.
Yeah.
That like once you've hired them on, that they know what they're doing and you can support them. Like I'm a pretty flexible person in terms of like just communicate, and if I see something wrong, I will flag it. But ultimately, it comes down to people work best when they're able to do it the way they like it.
Yeah.
So that's for me the biggest thing is being able to consider how they do it, because not as an entrepreneur, and I'm sure you know as well, like you're not good at everything. You have weaknesses.
Exactly.
So when I delegate or I hire out, it's to fill in those weaknesses, not to, like that's ultimately how you become stronger in your business.
Yep. Yep, that totally makes sense. So when you're planning out your days or you're planning things out, are you very methodical about it? Or do you kind of like give them an end goal, give them a due date, and kind of let them follow through themselves? Or do you have like guidelines, or how does it work with you?
I think in the beginning, it's like, all right, we have like guidelines in terms of, okay, here's the certain things that need to be done. So, like graphic designer, it's like, all right, honestly, I understand being a creative and like you produce best when you're able to just, flow with the way you want to flow. So for me, it's like, what is the scope of the work? So it's like you have the start line and it's like, this is what you need to know. Make sure you review the brand guidelines, the requirements, the voice, the tone, whatever. Cool. As long as you're within the scope, do what you need to do. We got revision 1, we got due date.
Got it. So much more streamlined. And how do you go about like improving processes or not? Or how do you even know when a process needs improvement per se?
If we're not hitting like goals. So for example, that would be in terms of like, for me, it's deadlines, because I'm obviously providing value and providing convenience for my clients. So if we're not hitting deadlines, then it's like, all right, time to fix up the process. And I'm sure like my process, I'm not going to say it's perfect right now. We're always in fixing mode, and it's going to continue to be like that as I grow and scale and whatnot.
So let's walk through your Erica Effah agency, and let's pretend that I'm a new client and I kind of want to go through like what are the different steps in it? How do I, if I were to work with you, what's the first step? What's and the discovery call or whatever that is, and then kind of walk me through a client journey.
Absolutely. For sure. So I guess for me, I really narrow things down to a call. I think the biggest thing you can do is talk and, well, not talk, like talk to each other, but more so like listen. So it's like, all right, you want to book a call? Let's book a discovery call. It's 15 minutes. We get on a call. It's super casual. You let me know, who you are, what you're looking for, what your pain points are. And I sit there and I listen. And if there's an alignment, then I'm just like, all right, this is where I can provide, but at the same time, be a human and be like, you know what? If I can't provide that, here's who I can, push you off to or give you guidance to. So if there's alignment, what happens is usually it's broken down into me explaining my 3 offers. And the 3 offers that I have essentially goes into the first one where it's, content strategy roadmaps. And that's where I sit with you one-on-one to basically develop that strategy. So from discovery and research to understand, your customer persona, your brand messaging, your voice, your niche, because a lot of people in the early to mid stage business don't really have that locked down. And then as well as understanding your content mix. So how are you actually going to approach that, whether is it in carousels or is it videos or anything of that sort. And then obviously your tracking and your performance, because a lot of people, they may post, but they don't understand what their KPI, like key performance indicators, are actually telling them, and whether it's effective marketing or not. So I kind of laid that down in terms of what they need. And then depending on whether they need the add-on of like team support, they can hire me in as a consultant, and I'll come in and basically support and coach your team on where those gaps are needed. And then there's the second offer where I have contracted for hire my content marketing services. So my team and I will go in from strategy to execution and overhaul your entire internal marketing efforts. So we'll go in there, we'll create the content calendar, do actual content creation, and then actually distribute it. So you can go focus on product development or whatever it is that you do. Because we all know, like, it seems like the end result of, content is like easy. It's like whatever, because you just see that, but really it takes a while. So take that out of your hands.
And how are you managed? Because I would imagine from a client perspective, and I've had some experience like this, where they're like, okay, well, how does this make me money? Or like, what is this at the end of the day? How do you frame them, how they should look at content marketing, and how do you frame it in the long run, let's say?
Yeah, so I say the biggest misconception that I hear from people are really around two things. It's obviously that they go into marketing and they're going to do paid ads is like the first thing.
Yep.
And I'm like, one, I'm not a paid ads specialist, but I can tell you that if you don't test and trial first, you're not going to understand whether that paid ad is really effective. And a lot of times people get upset. Myself too, when I first started the product-based clothing company, thinking that once I put ad dollars to it, that it's just going to land. It's like, no, like, it's like going fishing. Like everyone thinks that, oh, you're going to take worm as your bait and just go. But realistically, you might find out like the metal bait is actually a lot better, that looks shiny or whatever.
Some fish like bread, some fish like worms,
Exactly. So you need to test it out and understand, and then you use ads. So ads are amplification. That's what I like to say, as opposed to starting with that. So, and not to mention, organic content is for the long game.
Yeah. And how do you tell them that it's like working per se, or like how would you? Because this is what I would assume from my opinion. Like, how do you? Because I know from my experience working in the agency field as well, a lot of the clients are like, okay, well, what does this mean? And you kind of have to reframe them directionally. So, what are you like when you're saying, when you're looking at the content marketing, when you're having a review meeting, what are you like considering a win? What are you considering a loss? Or how do you frame the talk about the content strategy per se?
Absolutely. For me, it's about engagement. So again, people besides paid ads, they're like, oh, followers, like it's gaining, but like followers doesn't equal sales.
Yeah.
So because it takes a while, and usually it's about after 3 to 4 months, really you start to see results depending on like what avenue you're going, whether it's like social media or it's like, your website. But I say 3 to 4 months, you've done the same strategy over and over again, you should be seeing. And if you don't, then that's where you're like, all right, you have to tweak. But the biggest thing is like, are people engaging with your posts? Are they responding to your call to actions? Are they actually doing like the clicks and whatnot? You'll be able to know. So it starts with, on that discovery call, defining what exactly are you looking for? Are you looking for bookings? Are you looking for consultation? Are you looking for thought leadership? Just to see like, okay, like you're the top champ of the industry, right? So we define that in the beginning, so there's no like, miscommunication about it.
Oh, and you guys set the meetings or like the KPIs in the first meeting too, like, hey, like this, you're gonna expect to see this many reach, like this is your reach, this is your click-through rate or whatever. How do you go about like establishing KPIs?
Yeah, so essentially the discovery call, I learn about your business, see any alignment. If there is, then the next step, I would go and audit your channels.
And what does it mean? What do you mean by alignment?
So if I'm the right person for you, because a lot of people don't understand what content marketing is. Mm-hmm. And so I need to make sure and clarify, okay, this means that you are looking for somebody who can create content, whether that means for your newsletters, your case studies, your social media, your website. We need to define that first, because a lot of people just assume that like marketing, we all do paid ads. So
Yeah.
making sure that there's actually a defined alignment. Two, I also work within the verticals of direct to consumer, nonprofit, service-based businesses, and tech. So making sure like, okay, you do fall into that, or it's something I've had experience in and that I can actually provide for you, because I'm not about taking people's money to take people's money. Even though I know I could probably apply to whatever industry, obviously there's slight tweakings to each. I'm not about that. I want to be effective and impactful. So making sure that that is like laid out. And that's what I mean by alignment. So once that happens, that's where I go and I'm like, all right, let me audit your channel. So whether that means it's like IG, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever, and then, or your website, I go take that away. I have the audits and I'm like, hey, like here's the areas of opportunity. This is what my company can offer to you. Whether you decide to, you know, move on with it, here are the package rates, and then you can decide to sign on or not sign on. And then that's where we would kick off into understanding your customer persona profile, because it always starts with me understanding your business. Like I can't just go in there and just, you know, create whatever. I'm big on impactful marketing and being a data-driven approach. I'm really big on not allowing your bias to take over, but to see what the market is actually saying. And that's where a lot of my clients end up being like, I didn't realize like this is what people were actually looking for. And it's like, all right, let's build a customer profile around that. And then that's kind of what we base the marketing on.
And a customer profile, is that what you like, an avatar?
Yes.
Per se?
Yeah.
And when the business you work for, do you usually have multiple avatars or one avatar?
Every business can have multiple. But the thing is, for the sake of like starting, I'm like, all right, what do you have now? What is your game plan? What are you looking for? Like, for example, there's a potential client I have where their avatar is in a different country, but they want to come to Canada. So they have that like persona for that country, but it's not going to be the same for Canada at all. Because like, or else we would be able to market everywhere like it's nothing, right? So it's about developing that. So you can have multiple. You just have to have an understanding of like, you know, demographics, psychographics, how these people think and whatnot, and have it mapped out. That way, when you do your marketing, it's very specific and you'll be able to also know whether it's effective or not.
And that's another question that I have, because for my business, we've done a lot of avatars. We have our specific avatars, but where I think we're struggling a bit is like, what specifically are you looking for when you're building them out? And how are you using them effectively? 'Cause for me, it's like we say kind of like, okay, would this person resonate with this post? Would this be something valuable with them? That's kind of how I do it. Do you have any other approaches? Or first of all, how are you building the avatar? And then how are you like marketing to them?
Yeah, so research. I have someone, well, not yet.
Yeah.
Hopefully doing the market research, taking that off of my load, to essentially go in there and just see what the market says in terms of what their product service is. And then also looking at your competitor landscape, because like most of the times this is not something brand new. Like I've yet to have a client that has something completely brand new that I've never heard of. So going to see what the competitor landscape is, and that's like your start off point. Because if you see a lot of people doing that already, clearly there's some sort of, you know, need from there. And then reverse engineering and making sure that you have value, like your value proposition set up to go in there. And then it comes back to understanding like whether what you're putting out there is working, is to continuously, again, do it a lot and read whether you see it's effective. If you see like minimal change, then it's probably not worth it.
Are there a certain amount of like key stats that you use to benchmark each phase to understand if it's working or not? Like, for example, like how do you know if the customer avatar is effective? What are you looking for to see if you're targeting the right person? And then like, what are you looking to see in terms of content? Okay, is it working or not? Is it reach? As you said, engagement's a big one.
Yeah. So again, reach, engagements. The biggest thing is like comments, shares, like, and then obviously like the call to action. That depends on what your call to action is. So if it's like, we want you to book, then we're going to look at bookings, you know? So every company is different. And that's what I'll say for sure. But it comes down to like your engagement, the commenting, the sharing. Those are the biggest things. And your reach. How far are you actually reaching to these people? Ultimately, you want to hear from your users. That's going to tell you the biggest thing. And if you're not, then it's like, all right, maybe there isn't a market.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And when you're taking on new clients, how are you going about getting this data specifically? Because as I understand, like maybe they don't have enough, they don't have a lot of followers, they haven't posted a lot. So where are you getting that like initial data if it's a brand new client?
In terms of, what do you mean?
Like how would you, so for example, let's say like the client wants you to help them with their content strategy, right? Maybe they had two accounts, maybe they have an Instagram and TikTok, but they didn't really start posting anything like that. How do you go about developing a strategy when they have like nothing already in place?
Yeah, so it comes to the competitor landscape. I also offer an online impact trial. So totally free. And that's essentially where we go in there and we will, based on what I do in the competitor research and like the industry research, I'll create something and we just go out and we test it. So that's whether that's like a couple like graphics or videos or whatever, test it on their account, see how it responds. If we see anything, but heavily it's more so on if they don't have anybody, who else is in the market doing the same thing or similar, and then basing
who's
it
successful, and then yeah. In your experience, what are the most common mistakes that businesses make in their content marketing?
They're not specific with their niche. They're vague. So when I say niche, I think a lot of people think like say if I said fashion or something. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, like, yes, that is a category, but like you want to ultimately be focusing on the solution that they're looking for, or like you're the vehicle driving them from A to B. That's really how you want to like set up your approach. So a lot of the misconception is that they think that they can just go post anything, and it's like, no, we also need to not put ourselves into the mix and speak in a brand voice that speaks to their problem. You're always answering what is their how can you solve their issue.
Got it. What are the emerging trends you see shaping the content marketing landscape in the near future?
Yeah, so I'd say near future, it's kind of even happening now, but like user generated content, so UGC. People do not like paid ads. I feel like I talk about ads a lot for an organic marketer, but like nobody likes hard sells. So UGC is really centered on like the organic type of customer feedback review type of videos and responses. So that's on the pickup, and how essentially companies can incorporate that into their strategy, as opposed to having like influencers and being like, the person is like low key being like, I love this bar of soap or whatever. And it's less about people who have inflated like followings and more about just like regular people you relate to.
Interesting. Because I think you're right there, because I think a lot of people are catching up to the fact that it's like, okay, it's another influencer, and they have the tone, hey guys, here's another product. So it's like, it's almost very, very scripted.
Absolutely. Like, I think for me, I don't know if you watched the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I didn't watch the actual game. I just watched the halftime show. But it was enough for me to see that, like, apparently Beyonce had the Verizon ad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you really think about it, Beyonce, nobody come after me. I do like her. But, like, we are kind of disconnected from her.
Yes.
She doesn't talk. It's been a very long time since I've seen a Beyonce interview. It's only of recently, because if you look at any of Beyonce's businesses, unfortunately, and again, like, she's amazing and everything, but they don't do well. Like, she's good at music, 100%. No issue there. But like Ivy Park, like if you've heard of her athletic line, it's like there's a disconnect.
Yeah.
There's a massive disconnect. And it's only now that I see that I feel like her team is kind of pushing her to talk more, because like her doing that that ad, and then also dropping a hair care line and the perfume line and all these types of things, they're definitely trying to mold it where it's like she's relatable.
Yes, but she's like the most unrelatable person because like, she's
I wouldn't say that she's unrelatable. It's just, it's one of those things of lines of like celebrities where they've created that gap, but now
they create because they're not in the trenches as much with their fans anymore. They don't really know what they're going through. Is that what you mean?
Absolutely. Like, she's an interesting one. Like, that's one thing I'll say, but it's just like, and even then, that's a whole other thing that I could go into in terms of how she's doing her marketing, why she went the route of doing like a hair care line herself. Like in my head, I saw somebody talk about this on TikTok where it's just like she has a daughter. I don't know how much you know about the controversy of when she like first mentioned that she had a daughter, and essentially people were picking on her hair. And as a black woman, like that is a huge thing. How are you gonna especially hate on a young child's hair?
Yeah.
Beyonce to do a hair care line for herself, I'm like, she could have positioned this actually more of like hair care line for her, like her daughter, you know? And I think that would have resonated a lot more. Or if Beyonce did a hair care line, she should have done it for her iconic blonde hair because everyone knows her for her blonde hair.
Yeah.
And do it as blonde hair extensions. But instead, it's just like the mark is like slightly off.
Got it. And did you see that? I don't know if this is actually true or not, but did you see that the Kanye West, the ad he did for the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That was what kind of what made me think like the almost UGC's like, hey guys, just check out my site.
Absolutely. That wasn't just like we spent too much money. That was strategy.
That was very strategic,
there's no way he was just like, like we don't have money. Y'all lying.
Yeah.
Like 100%.
Because people are moving more in the direction of UGC, and people, I feel you're 100% right. They're catching on to like super sponsored, influenced, that kind of stuff. But so I think it is turning back to like, okay, a good product and people reviewing it and seeing them in action. Like even the Mark Zuckerberg, if you saw that video he had on X where he like just talks about the differences between Apple Vision and like Meta, but he just said they're like very, very, very unique, very to the camera. I thought it was pretty cool. Have you seen all this like Apple Vision stuff? You seen that?
A little bit, not too much. I just, Apple's on like iPhone 17, and I'm just like, y'all stopped at like, I stopped at 10. Like, that's enough.
Oh my God. People are wearing these things in the gym and they're just walking around with this like battery pack. And I'm like, oh my God, like that's exactly what we need. We're not connected enough to our screens. We need more screens all the time.
It's a lot. And it's one thing about technology. It's like you either hop on or get left behind. And I think that's one thing. It's just like as much as I'm very much on the internet, and part of me is also disconnected because I'm like, I need sanity.
I know it's too much. I can't even imagine. Like imagine eventually with Elon Musk, if you have this like that Neuralink thing, you're just getting ads as you're sleeping.
What if you have to like imagine paid ads? Like you want to like just chill, but no, you can't even see because you have paid ads. Like you have to get premium to like
oh my God.
Continue.
Premium site, premium site just so you can see normally.
Absolutely.
Honestly, that's a scary future, but like I feel like that's where we're headed. Like because they did the first successful human trial, so they implemented it. I don't know about that. Like that's too much for me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that. I don't think.
Yeah. No, tell me about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
I don't need anything else being plugged into my head. Do you have an example of where you turned a failing content marketing campaign into a success?
I wouldn't say anybody has been failing. I would say stagnant.
Stagnant?
Yeah, like I've had opportunities to go in with clients where they just didn't have the capacity in terms of like human capital, and they know how they want to orchestrate it. So it's like I came in, gave them suggestions on the gaps that they had, and then I was able to help them sell out a massive pilot event. So that's definitely been a big win for me, is being able to go in there and just, audit what's going on and say, hey, like, let me take this over for you. You're kind of halfway there, but, let me be the other half to make you 100.
And what are you finding are like the most common objections people are having?
In terms of like content marketing?
In terms of content marketing, or how does your funnel work? You don't do any paid ads yourself, right? You basically meet people, you have a call with them. So how is what are the top 3 objections, or like what are the things people are thinking about in terms of content marketing?
Yeah, like the biggest thing is like, okay, making sure that they aren't thinking that followers are like sales. Like that comes up the most besides the paid ads. Like those are the 2 things that I just have to come in and be like, look, if we can't switch the mindset, then that also falls into alignment, Got it. Because I'm not coming to, you also have to be able to agree and be open to trying new things. And if you don't believe that, I'm like, it's not my fire to deal with or whatever. So The biggest thing is, shoot, sorry, my train of thought lost. What was the question again?
So it, I basically said, what are the top three objections people are having in regards to content marketing on your discovery calls? Interesting that you said that the alignment portion of it is also like alignment in beliefs. That's actually something that I'm interested too. So they need to believe in your strategy and what you're kind of doing before you can go into any of it, right?
Absolutely. Because if you don't, then you're going to have the wrong expectations.
Yeah.
So I never promise results. Like, unfortunately, marketing is so random. I don't go in and say, yeah, when we do this, you're going to go viral. Absolutely not. And anybody who says that, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, but you're a liar.
Yeah.
Like, then you're not a true marketer, and you know. So it's being able to, like, let people know that you're not going to actually see results right away. Like, you can't just do a one-off, and, like, this is a long-term game if you're doing organic marketing. Like, and you got to be ready to wait to see the results, because when we do put it into effect, then you start to really be able to look back in hindsight, and you're like, wow, like, I've had a client here for almost a year, and it's like, to look back and see the growth, they're like, okay, like, it's no BS. But that's on my side also, to take what I'm achieving at all my different clients and also provide case studies so people understand. But that's like my internal, I guess, strategy that I also can apply to the clients as well, especially say you're in like the tech space or whatever, and basically creating those case studies of what you're achieving with your product, and then showing that, and showing that to your clients or your customers to understand, like, okay, this is what we've done and this is what we can do for you.
And when afterwards, when you have a client on board and you guys and it's been 2-3 weeks in, are you getting a lot of messages from them? Hey, it's been 2 weeks. What's going on? Or is it in the first couple of month you set like very clear expectations and they kind of understand what to do? And how often do you like review with them?
Yeah, so I said I use ClickUp, and like, you could use any task management tool, but I find that one is really good, has automations. I set everything up like in project management style, so you'll know like these are the deadlines, everything's mapped out, and then I give,
Oh, and the client has access to that as well.
they have access.
I
So
didn't know ClickUp can do that.
yeah, so at any point in time, you can literally go in and check, and I'm just like, look, if you check anytime during the week, you'll see it happening in progress. Fridays is really when I go in and like make sure everything is like up to date, but everything happens as it's like going through the process. So less time on my hands, everything's automated, and then it also gives transparency. So really, if you're asking questions, it better be a question that you didn't have to answer yourself.
Okay, because you're very transparent and you have this software, it provides them with like much more streamlined way of seeing their updates. So like, okay, everything's on track. Because a lot of people, what I'm knowing is like they're okay if they get progress or updates, but that's so okay. So ClickUp handles all that.
Yeah, ClickUp, they just go in and they can see the content calendar, they can see what's in progress, they can see how many graphics are done, they can see whatever. Like, it is literally, it's on there. So then I offer strategy sessions within my like packages. So then we focus on the actual strategy in the strategy sessions, as opposed to like project update. Like, unless there's like a project update that doesn't fall under ClickUp, it's like, all right, maybe that's like a 2-minute thing, and then we get to the meat and potatoes.
And how long do you think it takes to see if a strategy is working or not? Or how long do you have to stick with it?
Yeah, so that's why I say, like, well, and I only offer monthly retainers on like 3, 6, and 12, because I say like the lowest is like 3 months is really, you'll see. Like, if you haven't already, like, if you have nothing, then cool, you'll probably see after a little bit, because obviously there's nothing there. But like, to really hone in on it, 3 months.
3 months.
3 to 4 months. That's where you start to see like the effects of everything picking up.
And have you ever had a situation where you picked a strategy and after 3 or 4 months you had to switch up or pivot into a different direction?
Absolutely. So like, for example, one client that I have ongoing for a year, on LinkedIn, they're posting a lot of like static. When I say static, like one individual photo. I'm always looking at performance and doing monthly reviews for the package that they have. And so I noticed that carousels are doing way better, like the conversion rate, the clicks, and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, oh, okay, like, screw it, we're going to do a little bit more of carousels and less static posts. Like, you know,
Okay.
it's adjusting. So I basically have different packages that work within that. their needs. So if it's like, okay, you really want to have monthly performance reports, I can go in, obviously create that, but then I can also be agile with it and also take what we're seeing with the performance and implementing change. So it's continuous improvement.
Got it, got it. And that's kind of the idea, right? Like you take your best guess in the beginning, even but you worked for these industries, so you understand. So you take your best guess based on what you know, and then where the real value is in the course corrections and seeing the data along the way.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So, I mean, like between those two offers, like a lot of people are definitely into and find that they need these things. But I've also come into my third offer that is currently in progress right now, which is a beta academy. Well, it's an academy, but the beta is happening right now, where essentially I help up and coming leaders in those spaces learn how to do content marketing themselves. So, kind of an interactive group coaching program where I teach them how to do. Right now, I'm figuring out which ones people really want. But if it's gonna be content creation, search engine optimization, data analytics, also workflow operations, because a lot of people in this early stage, and I would like to. I think I'm probably type A. I'm really big on organization, so like having an actual workflow that works for you and works for your business, so then you don't feel overwhelmed. Because like you're a business owner, you're doing all of it. How can you condense it, at least on the marketing side, to feel less overwhelmed? So
Yeah.
that's what's happening right now. We have a bunch of people signed up, and the beta will be kicking off very shortly. So if anybody wants to sign up, find me on socials.
Yeah, definitely. If you want to plug it, or you can send me a link. We can put it in here. I think that's so. It's kind of like the approach. Is this part of your marketing approach too? Like to teach people and all these kinds of things? Because I know that like what a really good way to get clients is, for example, is you give away your best stuff for free. This is like I think this is the what's his name, Alex Hermosi model. And so they say you give away all your best secrets for free, but then you sell the implementation. Because if you say for content marketing, hey, you got to do this, this, and this is the way you got to present it. It looks like you're giving away your stuff for free, but on the back end of it, the people are like, wow, this is a lot. I'd rather just have her do it.
Absolutely, it's both. It's
Yeah.
both because, like, obviously, like I said, there's the strategy side. Like, a lot of people already like if they don't know marketing themselves, then they just need it. So there's that, and then there's also okay, like once I do the audit, it's like all right, here's literally the issues. You do two things: either you take it away and you do it with somebody else, or you do it with me, who literally pointed out what's wrong, and I can tell you how my team can solve it.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's two areas between that, and then obviously like the content marketing academy. That's literally just teaching you how to do it yourself.
And what's the Content Academy on? Like what platform are you having that on?
It's gonna be Zoom to start.
Oh, really?
Eventually, we're gonna have a proper platform. I have a couple ideas, but I have an MVP and I have a survey and I've sent it out to a bunch of people and people have signed up and it's like people want to do interactive sessions. So I'm like, let's start with Zoom. And
Oh,
then
so you're teaching the class. It's like an in-person, not in
not
person, but
virtual.
on Zoom. Are you going to record it after and have it like
Abs-
as an offering somewhere?
Absolutely. I think that's a big thing with people in terms of marketing also. Like they think that they're just gonna go full nosedive and start, but it's like, no, you want to refine. Like I know I have like 7+ years of experience between marketing and operations. The best way I can like provide value and impact is actually to test it out properly. Like I'm big on data and whatnot, and I know that people need it, but it's about listening to what they need. And that's why I have like the MVP sent out and like actually mapped out on these areas and how I'm mapping it out and whatnot. So then doing it through the Zoom, getting their feedback, maybe we find out, okay, we actually want to take this in person. Like I'm happy to do this in person, but like we need to start somewhere.
100%. So you're going to iterate it as you kind of go along.
Absolutely.
Oh, and that's pretty good. So it's almost, you can like make a webinar after you finish it.
Absolutely. I mean, the whole idea, there's going to be community, 100%. There's a group. Again, I have everybody's information and on lock, and it's going to be an interactive thing where it's like, all right, we're going to have a hub where everyone can talk about their struggles and like whatnot, because like everyone will talk about their marketing and how stressed they feel about it and whatnot. And I'm not a therapist, but essentially I'm like your marketing therapist, kind of.
How do you manage to stay, because you mentioned you have the operations background and you think about this in a very business oriented way. However, your business is a lot more creative as well as on the strategy part of it. So how do you stay creative and maintain a consistency in producing high quality content?
Yeah, so I think this is just something that's come over the years. But I think also work-life balance is a big thing. So not allowing myself to get overwhelmed and being like, hey, where I need to, delegate, maybe it's time to hire. Maybe it's time to find people like Talent Trellis. And that way I don't get burnt out creatively because it's very easy to. And like also having my days to be like, this is not working. Step away. Step
And
away.
and how are you managing? Like, what are the specific? Have you had any like down points or lows in your entrepreneurship journey? And how did you end up overcoming them?
Down points. I guess I would say like, and this is like more ongoing, but it's like isolating.
Yeah.
It's isolating. Like that's it. Like people who have a business they'll understand, but like everybody else is like, you could just take a break, and it's like, yeah, I could take a break, but the bills don't take a break.
Yeah.
So you just got to keep going. But at the same time, I'm doing something that I'm very passionate about, and like I'm betting on myself, and I know it's that dream from my dad that's like my fire that's burning me. So like as much as some days may be like, oh, this is a lot, it's like, no, give yourself grace and give yourself gratitude. And I think I'm getting to a point where I'm realizing, wow, I've really done well. I like, and I'm learning to like actually properly like accept what I've done and like be proud of myself. Because I think again, it also comes back to the early days of like, growing up, and obviously my parents having a high standard of myself. So I'm always really hard, but it's also about like now as an adult realizing that I have to love myself and
Yeah.
know my worth and hold myself to it.
Do you feel guilty when you're not working?
Yeah. Yeah, all the time.
And how do you overcome that, or do you just let that sit?
I haven't overcome it.
Yeah.
If we're being straightforward and honest, I have not overcome it. I've been burnt out before. I was burnt out with the operations job. That one tore me one because like I worked during the pandemic and I was that person who, if you were ordering toilet paper, I swear, like I was that person who was doing the shipments to make sure it comes on time. So
Yeah.
I saw all of it happening. I never slept. It was like 16-hour days, and I'm like, this is not it.
Oh my God.
So I've been burnt out, and I'm like, now I have to give myself grace. I said, I don't want to be burnt out from something I love. That is something that freaks me out.
Yep.
So doing it for a job that's like I'm building somebody else's dream, I'm not gonna allow myself to get burnt out at the job or my the job, the thing I love doing.
And how much would you say, like, per day? How many hours are you putting in per day, or is it more? And do you allow yourself time to rest within that day, or do you kind of just go until you burn out, take a few days off, go until you burn out?
I'll be honest, I'm not quantifying it because I know
Yeah.
it's a lot and it's
Yeah.
an unreasonable amount. Today I went to bed at 5 and I'm
Oh
here.
wow.
But like we keep it moving. But I know that right now I'm like actually pushing it. I feel it. And I've been like wanting to communicate with my clients and be like, look, I'll get you this on Tuesday. Give me grace. And then I also try to think about how can I also provide value if I'm gonna push this off. So if that means I'm gonna push this off, what can I add to help them? That might be part of my little people pleaser like problems, but like at the same time, I'm so big on providing value. And I think also when I worked that operations job, it was about providing value because like we were a third party logistics, like the client could have done it themselves.
100%.
And the thing that they always talked about was like if we don't hit our KPIs, like they'll just cut everybody
Yeah.
because they can do it themselves.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
therefore, we need to make sure we're providing value. So that's always kind of been in the back of my head, like I need to make sure I'm always providing value in some type of way. So make sure if I'm going to like, you know, if I'm not able to meet something, like I provide value and why. But for the most part, my clients are cool. Like that's the great thing about working for yourself is you get to choose like who's good and not. And going back again to the whole alignment thing, if it's like the vibes are off, cool, the vibes are off, and I know my worth.
I like this actually because I never considered the alignment section of it as like the beliefs, which are the most important part. Because you're right, if they don't believe within your specific philosophy, it doesn't really matter because there's always gonna be friction there.
Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, I know with what I'm doing, if they don't want to do it now, they will come back. They always circle back, close the loop.
I want to touch on a thing you said earlier about the isolation aspect of it because this is something right now my business partners, they're away in Pakistan. They're settling the operations over there, and so it gets very lonely or isolating for me as well. And I find that eventually if you don't like deal with that isolation, or if you don't find things to do, it slowly leads to like, I don't know if it's a burnout, but it's like a more inaction. Do you find that's something similar to for you as well? Or
Like the isolation.
yeah, the isolation aspect. Do you see that it affects your productivity?
No, I mean, it can. I know it can get to that point. For the most part, what I've done to kind of combat that is like community, placing myself around like people who are similar to me, and like I'm also a massive ambivert. Like I think I grew up more extroverted, and then over the years it just like like balanced it out. So like I can be out there and I can talk and I can be on like a podcast or whatever, but like I also have a social battery where it's like we're done, time to go home, and so I can be by myself for like weeks on end. But then it hits to a point where I'm like, all right, it's time to get outside.
Same kind of,
Yeah. So how I kind of combat those things is like just sprinkling in like community events that like work and pleasure, so that I don't feel too lonely or feel whatever, or have my circle. Funny enough, like my good friends, my close friends, they're not in social media. They're really not really online, which I like.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, honestly, if I didn't have an agency, I'm not sure I'd be online.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know
Like-
exactly what you mean. Like,
Oh, like you've reached this many views. This means nothing. Wow.
I know they always say that, or this person viewed your profile, or this person, or this person.
I'd say that's more useful than the like 500 people have viewed your page, and
And exactly,
it
yeah.
doesn't even tell me more than that. Like what? Okay.
It just, you know what it is? Here's what social media got really well. It's 100% a what's that? What are those things called?
Oh, slot machine.
It's a slot machine, 100%. Because you see, it's like, oh, what could this be? And you know that they're throwing out things in there just to have that over and over.
Absolutely. That's why you can't and that's why people get overwhelmed, because they see that you need to do X, Y, and Z, or you go on TikTok and they're like, you need to post 12 times a day.
Oh my god.
You need to have the trending sound, and it's like, it's not by force, it's not by fire. Be consistent over, doing a lot of quantity, and honestly, that's where you'll see what's working and what isn't, and then you also won't get burnt out.
And I feel like, do you find that I know it's in your job is a lot of content marketing, you got to check it out, but I feel like you don't really look at the results right away of the post. Like you'll look at all the analytics all at one time, but not throughout. Because I feel like that's such a big dopamine drain too. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it depends. So like, because I know in terms of like, okay, if I've done the data analysis, I'm like, all right, I know what threshold that I like a post is doing well. So if it's like 140 engagement, so like that's like likes, comments, shares, whatever altogether, I'm like, all right, I know this post is on a good trajectory, but that's usually within the first 60 minutes. I don't look at it again for a while. Yeah. So I know I look at it for the first little bit, and then it's like whatever.
See, that's the great way to do it, because I noticed as I started posting stuff to do with the podcast, sometimes like, okay, let's see, and it's like it's such a big drain. Like dopaminergically, all my dopamine's gone. So now I'm like, I just don't check it whatsoever.
Absolutely. Like you do your 60 minutes, and that's why I'm just like right now it's me, but like eventually I hope to have a community manager, but
100%.
Have somebody who's specialized in doing that and taking the time to just like, also that's a big thing, is talking with your audience and whatnot, but it is draining.
Yeah, it really is. It is, because it's just seeing the constant, like, because you get ups and downs, and then I was feeling really low for a while. I'm like, why is this? I'm like, oh wait, you've been checking like 24/7, and then your dopamine is down, and then like when your dopamine's down, you kind of want like that cookie, or you kind of want that ice cream, Yeah, I totally get that. Erica, we've been going at this for about an hour so far. I think this is a good place to end it, just to make sure there's no more technical difficulties. I would love to know some final questions. Do you have any resources, books, courses, websites that you would recommend to those looking to deepen their understanding of content marketing, or anything whatsoever?
Good question. I'm going to promote myself and say, you got to go to Erica Effah Agency on LinkedIn, and the site is under rebrand right now, but you can go to www.ericaeffah.com.
Why'd you put that up on the screen?
Put that up there. And you can also find on Instagram at Erica Effah Agency, or ericaeffah.agency, and essentially the content marketing academy that I'm creating would be a great start.
That's amazing. We'll definitely put that up on the screen and put that in the show description so you guys can check that out.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else that you want to leave? Final thoughts with the audience today?
Um, don't overwhelm yourself with content marketing, or in marketing in general. Like, it's a lot out there. You don't have to do it all. Start small and then build gradually.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, and have yourself a wonderful day.
Thank you for having me, Paul.
No worries.